August 1991, Martinsburg, West Virginia. A freelance investigative journalist checks into room 517 of a Sheraton Inn carrying a briefcase filled with 2 years of research into government corruption, covert intelligence operations, and a conspiracy he called the Octopus. 2 days later, Danny Casolaro is found dead in a bathtub. Authorities rule it a suicide. But the questions begin immediately. His briefcase is missing. His manuscript and research notes are never recovered. And before his final trip, Danny reportedly warned his brother Anthony, "If anything happens to me, don't believe it was an accident." More than 3 decades later, federal investigators still maintain the official ruling. So why does the case continue to haunt journalists, senators, and investigators to this day? And what exactly disappeared with Danny Casolaro inside room 517?
Weeks before his final trip, an investigative journalist sat his brother down and gave him a chilling instruction. "If anything happens to me, do not believe it was an accident." 11 days later, he was found dead. His name was Danny Casolaro. He was a persistent note-taking reporter who preferred cultivating sources and following paper trails over making wild accusations, operating right in the shadow of the CIA's headquarters in Langley, Virginia. By 1989, his paper trail led him to a database program called PROMIS. A tech company named INSLAW claimed the software had been stolen by the Reagan-era Department of Justice. In 1987, a federal bankruptcy judge ruled in the company's favor, legally declaring the government's conduct a fraud upon the court. Casolaro's investigation centered on allegations that PROMIS had been modified with a secret backdoor and sold to foreign intelligence agencies, allowing operators to read the secret files of other governments in real time. Casolaro dubbed this global network the Octopus. To build his case, Casolaro began meeting with a highly dangerous cast of characters. His sources included former intelligence officers, convicted drug smugglers, and shadowy operatives with ties to international crime syndicates. The deeper he dug into their world, the more paranoid he became. By the spring of 1991, he told friends he was being followed and receiving threats. That is when he gave his brother, Dr. Anthony Casolaro, his explicit warning to never accept it if he suffered a fatal accident. Despite the danger, Casolaro believed he was on the verge of a massive breakthrough. On August 8, 1991, he traveled to Martinsburg, West Virginia, and checked in to the Sheraton Inn. He brought along a briefcase stuffed with the culmination of his 2-year investigation. On the morning of August 10th, a hotel housekeeper knocked on the door of room 517. Receiving no answer, she unlocked it and found Casolaro dead in the bathtub. The local sheriff's department swept in and quickly ruled it a suicide. A meticulous journalist, days away from publishing the biggest exposé of his career, allegedly traveled across state lines to destroy his own life. To accept that story, you have to ignore the physical evidence left at the scene. The coroner's report documented 10 to 12 deep lacerations across both of Casolaro's wrists. Dr. Cyril Wecht, a highly credentialed forensic pathologist, reviewed the files and stated publicly that the pattern, bilateral, deep cuts with mixed hesitation marks, was highly atypical for a person to inflict upon themselves in sequence. Then there is his evidence. Hotel staff confirmed Casolaro arrived carrying his briefcase. Yet when police searched the room, the briefcase containing his irreplaceable research, documents, and the identities of his sources had completely vanished. It has never been recovered. The handling of his remains presents an even larger procedural failure. Before the local authorities even notified Casolaro's family of his death, a local funeral home embalmed his body. That process immediately and permanently destroyed any toxicological evidence that could prove if he was drugged or incapacitated. The final anomaly is the suicide note recovered near his body. It was highly emotional, vague, and entirely out of character for a man whose profession required exact documentation. The note omitted any reference to his sprawling investigation. Between the bilateral wound patterns, the missing files, the deliberate destruction of toxicological evidence, and the uncharacteristic letter, the official ruling of suicide collapses under the weight of basic forensic logic. If Casolaro was murdered, we have to look at his target. What exactly was inside that missing briefcase that someone felt compelled to bury? This diagram illustrates the first thread he was chasing, the PROMIS software. While the exact existence of the espionage backdoor remains highly debated, the underlying crime is a matter of record. In 1992, the House Judiciary Committee explicitly concluded that the theft of INSLAW's software revealed institutional wrongdoing at the highest levels of the Department of Justice. Casolaro also tied his research to the October surprise, an alleged backroom deal in 1980 to delay the release of American hostages in Iran. While a congressional task force ultimately found no hard proof of the deal, investigative journalists spent years documenting heavy circumstantial evidence linking the same covert operators together. To fund these operations, the network needed a covert financial artery. This was the third thread of Casolaro's investigation, the BCCI banking scandal. BCCI was a massive, corrupt financial institution that collapsed in 1991, resulting in a verified $13 billion fraud. The Senate Kerry report documented how it served as a financial hub for international intelligence networks, drug trafficking, and illegal arms deals. Casolaro was not chasing phantoms. The core elements of his octopus were massive, historically documented geopolitical crimes. The glaring issues with the crime scene eventually drew federal attention. In 1993, the Senate Judiciary Committee released an interim report noting the severe procedural failures in Martinsburg and urgently called for further investigation into Casolaro's death. That investigation never happened. The FBI conducted an internal review and rigidly stood by the local suicide ruling. Despite bipartisan pressure from Congress, Attorney General William Barr flatly declined to appoint an independent counsel to look at the evidence. The government's inaction effectively killed the story. Casolaro's complete manuscript was never recovered. Driven by fear, his sources stopped talking or recanted their claims entirely, and no one was ever charged with a crime. For his brother Anthony, the absolute failure of federal institutions to investigate the physical anomalies confirmed the exact warning Danny had given him months prior. We are left with a chilling set of facts. A journalist told his family he might be killed. 11 days later, his body was found under forensically improbable circumstances. His hard evidence vanished into thin air, and the global financial crimes he was tracking were later verified by the United States Senate. The physical impossibility of the scene demands answers to two simple questions. What actually happened in room 517? And why does the establishment refuse to look closer? If you want to force these questions back into the light, share this video, because somewhere out there, that briefcase still exists, and the truth is still missing.